Welcome to this Tutor to You Criminology video for WJEC Level 3 Applied Criminology. In this video we're going to be focusing on biological theories of criminality, looking at XYY Syndrome. Biological explanations of criminality are broken down into physiological, biochemical and genetic explanations for criminality, and XYY Syndrome falls into the genetic category. Genetic explanations examine the idea that it is an individual's genetic structure that is responsible for the character traits that make people more inclined to commit criminal activities. One of these explanations is XYY syndrome. Each individual has 23 pairs of chromosomes, the first 22 of which dictate aspects of an individual's behaviour, appearance and health. The 23rd pair determines an individual's biological sex. For females, these chromosomes are paired as XX chromosomes, for males XY. However, not all individuals have such a binary XX and XY pattern. Some have the presence of a third chromosome, for example XYY syndrome. The presence of this additional male chromosome impacts on the individual's behaviour and has led some to call XYY syndrome supermale syndrome as a result. It's thought that the presence of an additional male chromosome impacts on the temperaments and behaviour of individuals. Those with XYY syndrome are thought to have explosive tempers, hyperactivity, defiance, particularly of authority, and a tendency towards antisocial behaviour. The extent to which this is genetically programmed into individuals is debatable, as social factors such as being labelled as supermale may also impact on the personality of individuals, as may their upbringing. However, there are correlations between the presence of an additional male chromosome and criminality. Jacob et al. Conducted research into the genetic makeup of prisoners at Carstairs Prison in Scotland in the 1960s and found that the XYY chromosome arrangement was found in 7 out of the 196 inmates, which is roughly 3.5% of the prison population. Considering XYY syndrome is present in around about 0.1% of the population, or 1 in 1,000, this overrepresentation of men with this genetic pattern is a significant correlation between genetic structure and criminality. However, despite these figures, our understanding of genetics has advanced greatly in the almost 60 years since this research was conducted, and further evidence has been gathered that supports this hypothesis. There are also high-profile examples of XYY syndrome being linked to criminality, such as the case of John Wayne Gacy. Gacy was an infamous serial killer in the late 1960s through to the late 1970s in the USA. He was believed to have XYY syndrome and used his position of power as a manager of a fast food restaurant to sexually assault and murder young males. Nicknamed the Killer Clown, as Gacy had at one time been a children's entertainer, he was convicted of the murder of 33 males, although the actual figure is thought to be higher. While Gacy displayed traits of XYY syndrome, his upbringing could also be thought to have impacted on his crimes. He had a traumatic childhood, being victim to the psychological and physical abuse of his alcoholic father, who suspected that Gacy was not a real man, in his words. He taunted Gacy with homophobic insults. One of the key debates within criminology is the extent to which Gacy's genetic structure was the reason for his crimes, or whether it was a reaction to his traumatic childhood. Was it in his nature to become a killer, or was it his nurture? Further evidence of the link between XYY syndrome and criminality comes from Price and Whitmore, who found that XYY males were unstable and likely to commit motiveless crimes. And this backs up the findings of Jacobs and others who established this link. However, as most crime in society is committed by males, around 4 out of every crimes, or 80% of crime, is committed by males, with the percentage of a violent crime being far higher, it's difficult to attribute the cause of crime to being just XYY syndrome. If only 1 out of 1,000 males have XYY syndrome, why is so much crime committed by those that do not have XYY syndrome? It's also difficult to disentangle nature and nurture, as we've seen with the case of John Wayne Gacy. The causes of his specific acts could be traced back to his childhood. However, we could argue that perhaps an individual's genetic structure makes them more predisposed to commit crime, but it requires social triggers for them to commit the crimes.